Hey, good morning. My name is Kyle Gatton. I'm one of the pastors here, and I bet you've heard of this phrase before: looks can be deceiving. Looks can be deceiving. Like, I know when you look up at me, and many of you have known me for many years, when you look at me, I know what you're thinking. Great basketball player. I know that's what you're thinking. I know it's in your mind. I know it's in your mind. Hey, that's a great basketball. But looks can be deceiving, just so you'll know. Although when I was in college, I was able to, I could get the rim. I could not dunk because my hands weren't small enough to palm the ball, but I literally could almost dunk, yes, a 10-foot goal, not an 8-foot goal. I could almost dunk a 10-foot goal, and I got a nickname in college because of that, and because some of my friends were asking about that name after some Facebook posts. But looks can be deceiving. Looks can be deceiving. I love my son's last 2 years of school playing football. That was the fall of 2010, 2011. In 2010, there was only 3 seniors on the team, and there's only 3 juniors, my sons and 2 other classmates that played regularly. And then his 12th grade year, there was 5 seniors, but only 3 of them played regularly. And so I tell you that because in 2010 and 2011, the team that he played for, Providence, was a very young team. So a lot of freshmen and sophomores on both of these teams in 2010, 2011. And there was 2 particular teams we played both years. One team, when you walked on the field during warm-ups or when you see them get off the bus, you thought, man, these guys are huge. They would literally outweigh our linemen, offense and defense, by 20, 30 pounds easy, some even more than that. And so you go, ooh. I mean, we had to play them twice, 2010, 2011. We thought the same thing both times. Gosh, these guys are just huge. This not going to be a good night. It's not going to be a good night. Another team that we played both of those years, you look at that team, and they were very athletic. We knew they had more speed than us. There was no doubt. We beat both of those teams both years. And, one year it was pretty close, but the other years we pretty much handled them easily because looks can be deceiving. I think for our 25th anniversary, my wife and I, 25th anniversary, was it 25 that we did the cruise? I think that's right. The cruise came back to Mobile around our 25th anniversary. And so I'd booked it way ahead of time when it came back. And the ship, I think, was called the Fantasy. And when you look at it, you're driving up, you're driving downtown Mobile, and you can see it from the interstate, and you can see it far away, and it looked nice. It looked all shiny, and oh, this is nice. Well, once we got on the boat, you start walking around, you notice that this sucker's been painted many, many times. And you could tell it. You could tell that you could almost count the layers at different places. Well, the boat was 25 years old, I think, right? It was still a good cruise, but you could tell it was an older boat. And we didn't have to spend a month off the Alabama coast waiting to get back in. So we were happy, that, we did our 5 days and got back. But just the looks can be deceiving. Y'all remember a few years ago that there was a trend out there with our celebrities called #JustWokeUp, and they would take pictures of themselves without makeup, and then they would post them on social media, Instagram, whatever they chose to do. Oh my gosh. You ought to Google that and see some of the pictures, because you would not recognize your favorite celebrity without makeup. There are a few of them out there that would fit that bill. And speaking of bills, there is a couple pictures I want to show you that when you look at them, it looks deceiving. Here's the first picture. Okay, when you look at this one, you go, that's a shadow of something pretty big, maybe a shark, a whale, or something, right? Here's what it really is. Here's what it really is. Thank you. Okay. It is, we're debating whether it's a duck or a seagull. I'm not sure what it's a bird that's floating in the water. That's all I know. Okay. It's a bird floating in the water. And duck works better for me because if it looks like a shark and swims like a shark, it must be a duck, right? So that's duck fits better for me. There's some other pictures out there that where you look at them, that's going to be a little deceiving. Like Lieutenant Dan's fishing with his kids right here. This next picture, there's Lieutenant Dan and his kids. Thank you, Forrest Gump fans. Appreciate that very much. He actually has legs. He does actually have legs. It just sort of blends in with the water. The next picture is, of course, everybody knows what this is, right? It's a peach. It's not an egg. It is a peach. That's what it is. What's our next picture? Our next picture, no, this is not from Jurassic World. This is not from Jurassic World. This is a baboon, not a monkey, I was told. It's actually on the front of a car. It's sitting on the hood of this car. It just looks like it's bigger than that, but that's just perspective of the way the camera is. So looks can be deceiving on this as well. What's our next picture? Next picture is obviously a man that has no head waiting in a waiting room, right? Yeah, that's obviously it's a mirror. It's pretty easy to figure that one out. What about the next one? I was excited about this because I thought a big pig had just been slaughtered, and it's so hot outside you could just bake it right there on the rocks, right? That's what I really thought, and I was really excited about this because everything goes better with bacon, right? Bacon by itself is fine meal just by itself, but no, unfortunately, this is just a rock formation that looks like a bacon. All right, what's our next picture? Not snakes on a plane, but dogs on a plane is what this one is, obviously. Of course, you can take your pets on planes, so that's really not unusual, is it, to have a dog on a plane? Although having arms is a little bit unusual. Our last picture, I think it was our last picture. Everybody knows what this is, right? It's cassette tapes, right? No, it's a bunch of buses. It's an aerial picture of a bunch of buses. But, of course, some of y'all don't remember what a cassette tape is. I understand that. You're a little too young for cassette tapes. But, looks can be deceiving. It's not always what it appears to be, and that's what's going on in our last segment of Stranger Things, because Jesus does something that looks a little weird to begin with. Jesus is actually says something and sees something that you think one thing, but it's not. So here's our story. It's in Mark chapter 11. Is our story. Okay, Jesus is entering Jerusalem. Here's the setup for this. This is the week of Passover. This is Jesus' last week. In other words, he is coming in on a donkey on Palm Sunday, and so the Friday of this week, he's crucified. Thursday, he has that Last Supper. He's arrested Thursday night. All right, so that's our deal. He's coming in on the Sunday on the donkey, and he's coming in Jerusalem. And this is Passover. This is the crowds are wild as far as being everywhere because this was a big celebration. The Passover is a big celebration. Of course, what do they celebrate? They're celebrating of passing over of death in Egypt. All the Israelite babies, firstborn, lived. All the Egyptians died, right? And then right after that, they were set free from Egypt. They were told, get out. So they're celebrating this whole deliverance. And so it really is a huge party, huge celebration time. So people are everywhere. And so Jesus is entering Jerusalem at the height of this time. And here we go. His first thing he did is he went into the temple courts and he looked around at everything. He looked around at everything in the temple courts. But since it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. Comes in, you know the story, a lot of people waving their palms and all this other stuff, but we forget that his first thing that he does is goes to the temple. And in this temple, he sees something. There's something going on at the temple, but he chooses not to say anything. He chooses not to highlight it. He chooses not to even have a discussion with the disciples about what he sees going on. So, long day, we're going home to sleep. The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. We're assuming probably in the morning, sometime like that. Seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves because it was not the season for figs. Then he said to the tree, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard him say it. Now, I don't know about you, but figs is actually, during this period of time, it was a big deal. It was actually good food to eat. Jesus was hungry, and a fig tree was there, so naturally, there's no McDonald's open, there's no Hardee's open, so the fig, I'd like a fig for breakfast. Can I make a confession? I'm not a fig guy. I'm really not. My parents were. My mom's home place, which is actually owned by my cousin who lives in Abbeville, still has a fig tree on it. What I remember from my dad's family, I think his sister had a fig tree at her house, and then we had friends in our hometown that had fig tree at their house. So there was an abundance of figs accessible to my parents, and they got them regularly, and they made fig preserves. At some point, I know I tried them because I decided I did not like them. I distinctly remember not liking them. However, occasionally, somebody got the bright idea to mix them with strawberries. That I liked. Still wouldn't eat a whole lot of them because, truthfully, strawberry or blueberry Newton is what I prefer, all right? But the figs, my parents liked them. And they would make preserves, and they were always there. And I would imagine, I didn't get up most of the time when my dad did. He was always early, but I would imagine there's many mornings that he would have toast and put figs on his toast. But not me. I just was not one of those guys. The text tells us it was not the season. It was not the season for figs. So that doesn't make any sense. It's like, it's not a season for figs, but he's going looking for figs. Like right now, there are fields that I pass by every day. One right outside my window, I can see the field. And there are green plants in the field. I go by a field that has green stalks. And I would be an idiot right now if I went and pulled up one of those plants expecting peanuts. I'd be an idiot to walk through a field and expect to find corn right now, right? That would be stupid. I should not expect them to have anything. But here Jesus comes upon this tree. It's not in season, wants a fig, and then doesn't find it, and curses the tree. So here's my observation. I think Jesus needs one of these. Okay, that's just my opinion. Okay. You're not you when you're angry, right? Still love the Betty White commercial, don't you? Still love that one. You're not you when you're angry. Was he hangry? That's another Snickers commercial, right? You must be hangry, right? So that's what appears is going on here. He is so hungry that he's not thinking straight. Because Jesus looked that the tree is not supposed to have anything. So what is going on there? Well, let's return to what Mark tells us. After he curses the fig tree, he keeps going. Reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple courts and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple's courts. As he taught them, he said, is it not written, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations, but you have made it a den of robbers. So he's not happy with the tree. He keeps going. He's not happy with the temple. Maybe that's where the song came from. So you had a bad day. You take it one. Okay. So it's not a good day. It's a bad day for Jesus. Just not good. But the day finally ends, and then we have another day. In the morning, as they went along, they saw the fig tree withered from the roots. Peter remembered and said to Jesus, Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed has withered. And this was out without Roundup. This has happened without Roundup. How is this possible? You see, it's one thing for Jesus to talk to a tree. It'd been interesting if the tree talked back. But anyway, he talked to a tree, but then an action occurred. The tree actually died within 24 hours. The tree was withered away. That's pretty strange in itself, that the first thing, the tree died, withered in 24 hours. It's stranger that he cursed it when it was not even supposed to have figs to begin with. But here's the deal. Figs, we need to know about figs because there's history with figs in the Bible. Not sure you're aware of this. But our first introduction to the fig tree happened in Genesis. You remember Adam and Eve made lingerie and underwear out of them? Y'all remember that? That's the only mention of a tree, truthfully, in the Garden of Eden is the fig tree. The fig is actually a staple in the Mediterranean community for thousands of years. It was one of those things they relied on. And when the nation of Israel, again, they left Egypt, they were headed to, quote unquote, the promised land. And as they were getting ready to enter the promised land, Moses sent 12 dudes, go look. We want you to be spies in this land. And they came back and they had glowing stories, but one of the things they said was, hey, there are fig trees there, which is good for food, it's good for shade, it's good for wood. And so what we find in the Old Testament particularly is that figs are a metaphor for Israel and also a metaphor for blessing. That's what we find in the Old Testament. Because God said this through Moses or whatever in Deuteronomy. He said, for the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, read the promised land. He's bringing you to a good land, a land with brooks, streams, deep springs gushing out into the valleys of hills, so plenty of water. Then he says this, a land with wheat and barley, vines and fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil, and honey. So this is the promised land. This gives us the idea that fig tree is part of the symbols for well-being. It's a part of the symbol for prosperity. It's part of the symbol for security because they talk about the vine and the fig tree together. Of course, the vine, grapevines too. You have the grape and you have the fig there together. And what we see is that the fig tree, if some of you may never have seen one, they have pretty big leaves on them, right? They have pretty big leaves, so they provide pretty good shade. And so when you talk about having vines and the fig tree, what you have is, again, safety and peace and well-being is all built into that imagery, that metaphor of the fig tree. The fig tree, by all indications, when it's spoken of in the Old Testament, is a tree, it's a plant that is cultivated. Somebody's taking care of it. They make sure it gets to its full potential so it can be big enough to supply fruit, to supply the shade that it needs to, and of course, eventually may have to supply wood. Now understand, Israel had been wandering. Israel had been wandering for 40 years. And that was, they were in exile, truthfully. They didn't have a home. They had left Egypt, that was their home. Their new home was the promised land, that was yet to come, so they were in between. They were in exile, and the wandering was part of the punishment. And so when God tells them in Deuteronomy that you will have your own vines and fig trees, he's basically saying now, this is a sign of blessing. This is a sign of security. That's what you're gonna have in the promised land. This theme is sort of picked up in Hosea 2, 9:10a. When I found Israel, it was like finding grapes in the desert. When I saw your ancestors, it was like seeing the early fruit of the fig tree. So again, that metaphor for Israel. And then during Solomon's lifetime in 1 Kings, Judah and Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, lived in safety, everyone under their own vine and under their own fig tree. So the fig tree has a place in Israelite history. So when Jesus is cursing this fig tree, he's not just cursing it because he was hungry. He's cursing a symbol. He's cursing a symbol. And this may go all the way back to Jeremiah, where this idea has been picked up on, because in Jeremiah 8:13, I will take away their harvest, declares the Lord. There will be no grapes on the vine, there will be no figs on the tree, and their leaves will wither. What I've given them will be taken away from them. What is going on is God has told Jeremiah, give this word to the nation of Israel, to Judah, who are what? God's chosen people. Give this word to them. What has happened is the people, God's chosen people, who he has said, here's what I need you to do. You make sacrifices to me and follow my commands. Pretty simple, right? You sacrifice to me in worship and you follow my commands. Whatever I tell you, you just do that. If we do that, you're good to go. Well, they stopped following his commands. And that's when Jeremiah said, guess what? No figs for you. No vines for you. So gone is the prosperity, gone is the safety, gone is the security. But here's the deal. Jesus is not just cursing a symbol. He's given a visual representation for what he has just seen, not just that day, but for the last 3 years of his ministry and probably 30 years of his life that he's been a part of this. Because in just these few days, what has he seen? He came to the temple. He saw them profiteering. He saw them making money that he believed they should not be doing. Then he curses the fig tree. Then he tosses people out of the temple who are making money, the money changers. So what he is saying, this cursing of the fig tree is really a visual representation of what he says to the institution, to the church leaders. He's basically saying, you've missed it. You've missed it. Centuries and centuries, you have missed it. I have been here for 3 years and you've missed me. You didn't recognize me. But this is just really an extension of what's been going on for years. Where quote unquote church, the religious institution, was not about worshiping God, was not about honoring God and bringing glory to God, loving other people. It was about what was in it for me. What I could get out of it. What I could profit from it. What people thought of me, the way I looked on the outside. This was a message to the church. This was a message to the church. And it's not so different today. Not much has changed in a couple thousand years. We still are a church that tends to lean about to what I can get from it. It's all about me. It's all about what I want, what I think I should get, what's in it for me. What are you doing for my family? What are you doing for my kids? What are you doing for my students? What are you offering me? Not so much different. Not so much different. That fig tree had all the appearances of having fruit, but had none. We live out at a place that 2 years ago, we had more pecans than we wanted. Our neighbors had a yard full of them. They were just going to waste. You know what happened last year, right? All those trees, no pecans. He's pointing the finger at the church. He's pointing a finger at you and me. So let's go back to where we started. Looks can be deceiving, but your life never lies. You see, you can fool people occasionally by the way you look and some of the words that come out of your mouth and some of the actions that you do, some of the practices that you do that look good. And that people look at you and they think one thing, but that can be deceiving. But your life, day in and day out, never lies. It's not what you do on Sunday. It's not what you're watching an hour a week whenever you watch or tune in. It's more than that. It's more than that. As a follower of Christ, here's the deal. We follow Jesus. As Jesus' disciple, we are to be like Jesus. We don't just simply ask the question, what would Jesus do? We live a life in such a way that people see Jesus in us. Just asking the question is not going to change the way we live. Living a life that is not deceptive, that's what we're aiming for. So what does that look like? That means we love people that nobody else loves. That means we forgive that person that everybody around us, even our spouse, says, don't forgive them. You can't forgive them for what they've done to you. It means that we are not hypercritical people, but we are hyper-graceful people. That we are offering grace when the world says no. Can I tell you that right now in our country, in our state, and in our community, this is a challenge. This is a challenge. I try not to date any messages for all the tens of people that watch it down the road, but we just had a couple decisions this past week by the Supreme Court. Has divided our nation, has divided our state, has divided our community. My question is, can they see Jesus in me? In the way that I live my life? And can I tell you that you'll hear and see a lot of vitriol on Twitter, Insta, Facebook. You're going to see it out there. You'll see it on the national news. You'll see it on the state news and some on the local news. What are you doing to let them see Jesus? What words are you saying? What words are you typing? What messages are you getting out there that when people hear you and see you, they see Jesus? Because it's what you're doing in those small moments of your life, those snap decisions in your life. When you send that message, when you send that tweet, when you post on Facebook that says who you really are. See, it's in those moments that your life never lies. There's 11 fraternity brothers from the 80s in this group message. Most of the time, the main focus is Auburn football, Auburn basketball, and bashing Alabama. Okay, that's really the main point, right? But lately, particularly the last couple of days, there's been a divide in our group over decisions that Supreme Court has made. And what I love the back and forth, people like this on both sides, When it boils down to it, because every one of us on this group follow Jesus. And what I liked was one of the guys said this: brothers, we can agree to disagree, but one thing that will never stop is I love each and every one of you. And nothing, no decision by a politician, no decision by a Supreme Court, no decision by a governor or a senator will change how I feel about you. I love you with the love of Jesus. Nothing will stop that. Looks can be deceiving, but your life never lies. So what can you do? I'm going to offer something pretty simple, yet profound. Simple, yet difficult to live out. But if you can, looks won't be deceiving. Your life will show it. It's a prayer of St. Patrick. Just part of that prayer. And I want to ask you to stand with me and read this prayer with me as we close. Would you please stand? Join with me. Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ on my right, Christ on my left, Christ where I lie, Christ where I sit, Christ where I arise, Christ in the heart of every man who thinks of me, Christ in the mouth of every man who speaks of me, Christ in every eye that sees me, Christ in every ear that hears me. If that is us, our lives will show it. God, thank you so much for giving us the power of your Spirit to live like Christ, to show others Christ in us. And may we do that this week. In everything that we say and do, whether in person, online, through a message, or through a post, may Jesus be seen in each one of us. In his name I pray. Amen. Thank you very much. Have a great week. Love y'all.